Thank you so much for jumping on with me. I'm really privileged to have you. And I also just wanted to start off by thanking you and honoring you, and thank you for doing this with me and being able to share your voice and educate as many people as we can. I guess to start off with, I'd just love to know a bit more about you, who you are, what your background is, and yeah, I guess what your experience has been as well.
Yeah, cool. So you obviously know my name's Tylisha. I live in Sydney at the moment, but I'm a proud Indigenous woman. My tribe that I come from is Kalalii and Birragubbi. So that's from Outperga in Ipswich of Brisbane, and then the Birragubbi is from up north. I think it's like south of Cairns. And yeah, so I'm just, really happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
I think now more than ever, it's definitely very heightened at the moment with what is happening with racism, especially with what's happening in America. But I really want to keep it close to home for us, because as much as everyone is hurting with what's going on in America, I really want to raise awareness of this same issue that's happened in Australia for hundreds of years, and it's not okay. And yeah, I mean, I have no experience in this. I really want to educate myself and as many people as I can, which is why I have you on here. So I don't really want to do a lot of talking. I just want you to talk. I want you to educate us and share with us what you can, really.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I think people don't understand really why it's so important to Indigenous people here, as First Nation people of Australia, and why it's so close to home. The Black Lives Matter movement is a movement for systematic racism for Black people as a whole. Like, it started off in America, but then it became something as a whole for all Black people of color. So Black people of Indigenous heritage to whichever land, so Native American Indians, Mexicans, Indigenous people. And yeah, so I just, it's really close because it happens here all the time. You know, we're not, the similarities are so how can I explain it? It's so similar that we've got people over in America that are being shot to death by law enforcement. But we've got people here in Australia, Indigenous people, that are dying in police custody, which is basically the same, but they're just doing it behind closed doors. Yeah. And it's not coming to media attention. And that's what the frustrating thing is. When people are like, oh, but this happened 1,000 years ago. No, it's happening every single day. And you know, it's really sad to see that a death of a man over in a different country is only now bringing media attention to how they use their power and their authority, and they abuse it by using excessive force to people that aren't a threat. You know, at the end of the day, we are just normal humans, just like anyone else, and we deserve the same rights as what someone of not color has. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I think we touched on it before I started recording.
And
you mentioned like the white privilege statement, and I think there are people who don't understand it and may get offended by it. So I'd love for you to explain what that means as well.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like people think that white privilege means money and going to a fancy school. Like, no, that's not what white privilege is. White privilege is waking up every day, being able to go to the shops without being racially profiled because of the way you look. It's just like saying, oh, I'm not privileged, but I'm not racist.
Yeah. I know we were also chatting more about, like your experience and systematic racism, and I guess your experience with that, and more about like Australia Day as well, and how that the community and why it is so important that we change that date as well and what it symbolizes.
Yeah, so of course, and it's a trending topic at the moment. It's opened up a lot of discussion of Australia Day. I've seen a lot of Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people say, well, if you're saying that Black Lives Matter, we expect you to be there January 26th marching with us then for the rights of changing the date of Australia. So basically, to shed light on that is more so we want to celebrate Australia Day. We don't say that Australia Day is a bad day. We say that Australia Day date is a bad day to be celebrating it. I'm sorry, but if it were the other way around and we're not mourning the Anzacs, it'd be a complete different story, because these people fought and died for your country. My ancestors fought and died for my country on that exact day that the First Fleet came to Australia through Botany Bay and killed us for being apparently terra nullius and not having a certain hierarchy and whatnot, and just for greed. You know, half of our whole nation got wiped out. The reason that New South Wales Indigenous people, the Korees of New South Wales land, are so light-skinned is because half their people were bred out. They were forcibly removed from their parents. The women were raped, had their children, then killed, and then it just was a cycle until our colour skin was bred out. And I think that's what people don't understand. They're like, we're not drinking on Australia Day to celebrate the genocide. We're drinking because we're Aussies. And I was like, well, why is it such a big issue to change the date then? You can still drink tomorrow. You can, Australia Day wasn't even named Australia on that day. Why would you celebrate Australia Day on a day that, it wasn't even it was a day that people were being brutally murdered. It was full-on genocide. And that's what we march for. I'd love to come celebrate with you, but it's not right for my people. It's an injustice of us. Everything, all the oppression of my people come from that day. And that's why the Black Lives Matter, the systematic racism and everything, it all ties in to being enslaved. And that's exactly why the African Americans as well are fighting, because they were enslaved. And it's just a big cycle. So, I think all people are saying now is, if you're really on the bandwagon, keep that same energy and be with us on Australia Day. Because it all ties together.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of young people especially aren't educated on this, because and it really frustrates me, because we only get what we're taught in school, and we're not taught this. We're not educated on what actually happened when Australia was founded. And I think that's why it's so important to educate people. When you're younger, you're just like, oh, Australia Day, it's a day we get off to drink and whatever. But a lot of people don't know what happened. And I think the date does need to be changed. Like you said, you're not against celebrating Australia as a country, but why would we celebrate that day when that's what happened?
The history behind it,
exactly.
Of that day.
I honor you so much, because you keep also saying I'm sorry, and I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I don't think there's any reason for you to apologize at all.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to honor you in that as well. But I guess, is there anything that you can let people know? What can people do to actually help make change? Is there any way that we can sign petitions, or what is happening to change the date, and anything else that we can do to stop this and raise more awareness?
So I guess the way that you can raise awareness of it is it starts at your dinner table. Honestly, it really does. It's a conversation like this to raise awareness of what's actually happening in our backyard. The injustice of my people. We have 432 deaths with deaths in custody. People that haven't even been actually arrested for anything. Only back in 2016, Rebecca Ma, an Indigenous woman, was picked up by police. She was detained for being drunk and disorderly. And, 6 hours later, she was found dead. Stuff like that. And there's no justice. You know what I mean? If that was a white person, that would be all over the bloody news. But you don't hear about these things. The 14-year-old boy, Elijah, that was riding his motorbike and a man thought he stole it and ran him over, and he gets away with manslaughter. I'm sorry, but if that was a white 14-year-old boy, he would have justice. Mm-hmm. I obviously know that justice, locking someone away will never bring someone back, but at least their lives had been acknowledged. Mm-hmm. And David Dungay Jr., 2015, a man that, let me just get this clear. So deaths in custody, obviously if you've committed a crime, you're going to be detained and whatnot. I don't know what, to an extent, like what David Dungay was in incarceration for, but it's the fact that he was a type 1 diabetic, he was eating crackers, and because he refused to stop eating them, the police used excessive force, 6 police officers, mind you, and moved him to a different cell, restraint, hands behind his back, as well as George Floyd saying, I can't breathe, more than up to 12 times, and dies. Also, whilst being heavily sedated. Like, that should not happen, ever. And I think that the way that we can make a change is, like I said, at the dinner table, talk about it with your family, like your semi-what racist parents that, grew up thinking that this is right. You can break that cycle. It's taught and it can be untaught. Just researching. Like, we have an amazing thing called the internet. Being uneducated it's not an excuse anymore. Coming to the marches, being that extra statistic so that the government can say, 10 years ago we had 300 people at this march, but damn, we've got 30,000 now. That gives them an opportunity to open up a question like, are we doing something wrong? What can be done? It's not just Indigenous people marching, it's white people, it's Muslims, it's Asians. This is the only way that we can get our voice heard, because we only make up 2% of the population of Australia. No one's going to listen to us. We're a minority.
Yeah.
Until everyone's on board and agrees that our lives matter and that we should seek some justice of all these people.
We are the change that needs to happen, and it might take another 50, 100 years, but if we don't start now, it's never going to stop. So exactly. It is a process, and strength is in numbers. And before I let you go, there was something really important that you touched on before I started recording as well, and that was the statistics surrounding suicide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The statistics of suicide in Australia, Indigenous boys, Indigenous men are the highest rate in the entire world. So we're a very small country compared to America and everywhere else. Yeah. Being 2%, the absolute minority of Australia, as well as it being small enough, and we make up the largest. You're 4 times more likely to find an Indigenous boy commit suicide by the age of 15. And like I said, take 10 minutes off of Facebook, off of Twitter, Instagram, Google it. The statistics are all that. So, it's really, this whole Black Lives Matter campaign and movement has really opened up so many conversation starters, and people now are challenging it, and it's really good. It is.
That's really important as well. Like you mentioned, we have to band together. Like, I think a lot of white people think, oh, it doesn't affect me, or what am I going to do, or what can I do to change? But that's the thing, like, we have to band together to show that we are together, and this needs to stop. So strength is always in numbers. So
exactly,
if your bit is just, going to a protest, like, it's a few hours out of your day that could change things substantially. Exactly. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll definitely have to chat again.
Thank you.
And I'll continue sharing anything that you think is helpful, like send my way so I can keep sharing, and hopefully we can start making a change.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And you really are like such a great role model. Being with your especially using your platform and speaking up about this, it takes a lot of courage, because some people might not agree with you, and you could lose a lot of followers and stuff, but it just goes to show what a good person you are, and because it's the right thing to do. I can't thank you enough. I'm really appreciative of it.
No, thank
We all
you
are.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.